What up, y'all? It's Jay Gatto here. Coming at you again with another video. And today we're just gonna be going over my my sketchbook. Show you some of the drawings that I've made the last couple of months, and some ideas, that I have, and I want to kind of share it with you guys. They're original ideas, but like I said, I've said before, originality, it's you take from other things and you build something you kind of unique, or that's your own. And also you take when you draw or you create characters or stories, you also take from your own life or your own situations, and you put a little bit of your art and your creations. You put a little bit of yourself in your creations, and and others, it's people that made an impact on you, or that are some kind of characters that you like, and you want to kind of put them into a story, or make it part of your story because those people made a certain impact, or you just feel like they would look good in like a comic book or whatever. And I'm not gonna say which of these characters, or I probably am, of the characters that are based on other people that I've met. Then I could go over some of the. I won't go over some of the stuff that are based on myself. Those are a little personal, but a lot of them are based on stuff, but I separated in a bunch of them, and also based on other characters that already exist, from anime, or whatever, and then also elements from actual boxers, or actual which I'll go over in here today. And so the first one is B-Boy. And B-Boy is one of the oldest characters that I've drawn. I think the first time I ever drew this guy was back in high school, and this is one of the first guys I drew. And it was one of those things where you just pick up a pen and you're kind of bored and you just draw something, and it looks really cool. You like how it looks, and not just you, but everybody else that sees you draw it, likes it as well. And at first it was just, a guy with a hat, right? And then after that, I kept on building on the story, giving him, abilities, or what was he? Because the thing about, this character is that he's very mysterious, I guess, and people want to know about him just the way he looks. He has a cap and he's very mysterious. Mysterious people tend to gather the interest of people. And so I was kind of forced in high school to make up stuff about him, and sometimes even lie that he was actually an actual character from a video game or something, which he wasn't. I just made him up. and that's how that's how I progressed, pretty much lying to people about making this character. And at first, the first thing I gave him was he was a breakdancer. He was a b-boy, a guy that liked music and was a breakdancer. And then and then immediately right after that, in high school, I decided to give him some sort of a handicap, because I was a very big fan of handicapped superheroes like Daredevil, and other superheroes as well, kind of like that had problems but made those problems their strengths, similar to Doctor Strange with his hands, and Daredevil, and all these other types of superheroes that we've heard of. And those were always interesting to me. Those were always my favorite type of characters. And I found them very interesting, and that's one of the things that I wanted to give this guy. And this guy's, I guess you could say, ability / disability is that he has autism, and he has this thing to where he's very sensitive to light. He's very sensitive to smells. He's very sensitive to hearing, and he's very sensitive even to touch, you know. And he's had problems with that, so he tends to wear a lot of clothes that cover his body, including his nose and his face. He has a cap for like the light, and he's bothered by lights, and but at the same time, this ability helps him, you know, kind of be a good fighter in a way. But at the same time, in order for him to function properly, he has to put his headphones on in order to block a lot of the noises that he hears, and that's why the headphones are there. And with the music, he's able to also, you know, move better and dance, and at the same time beat your ass. So I thought it's a good concept, and I decided to keep that. And then the sword is the newest element to it. The sword was actually added, you know, recently. But it's a thing where the character that I added on, and it's probably the oldest character that I've ever come up with. And of course, through the years, there's been characters similar to him. One of the ones that comes to mind the most is probably Baby Driver. But this guy, believe it or not, I had come up with him before Baby Driver. And but there's others similar, you know. There's others similar to him as well. But you know, it's like, it's a concept that's been used before, like Rain Man, and stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty much, you know, B-Boy. And yeah. And these are some of the quotes that he says. You know, he says very little. He's probably the one that says, from the characters that I've made, he says the very least. Because like I said, he doesn't talk a lot. And then from that we go to Tombow. I think I raised up this a little bit too much, so you can see this here, this, right? And then we got Tombow. So Tombow is he's kind of like the character. This character, how long ago did I make this character? This one was he's gone through a lot of steps too. Because the thing about me is, if I like a character looks, he goes through changes, and I add on to, you know, the things that he does or stuff like that. But he's been around. I think he's probably the second oldest from this other guy over here, but he's not that old. He's about maybe 4 years old that I've been drawing him, and he's based on a little bit of Ryu, right? Ryu. He got gloves and of course the bandana, and he represents, you know, I guess you could say he represents traditional martial arts, or the mysticism of traditional martial arts, I guess you could say. He also represents, you know, the chosen, or the person that was chosen to take a martial arts to the next level, as in, like, how can I say this? Kind of like, he's the one that's chosen to keep practicing a certain martial arts. And the reason he was chosen is because he was actually a good martial artist. And the master saw him fight or whatever, and he was like, you know, you're the one that I want to teach this martial arts. And I got that from actually, you know, Street Fighter. But it's not a very complex storyline, a very different storyline. This is heavily based on, and the reason he's heavily based on stuff that's already been done before is because he is meant to be that chosen one, or that basic, you know, Shoto character that a lot of people like, but also I guess you could say he's overdone. But he's meant to be that. He's meant to be that character within their storyline. By the way, most of these are connected. These two are in the same story. And then you got, well, that's his stance there. And I was going to go into more of his details, but I didn't. So there's quotes here, which, you know, they're kind of Boy Scouty. But that's the point with him. He's very, I guess, basic and superhero-y and stuff like that. And this is Dragonfly, which follows him all around. That is, where did I get that from? That's kind of like Peter Pan-ish, because he has that element of like, oh, you know, he could do no wrong or whatever. But in this story, he goes through acceptance that he has to be more open-minded, right? And that he's a little bit self-righteous, but that's going into the story. I was just talking about the character here. He has his gloves here, which actually increase his power punch, and he has a bandana that helps him with sweat. And that's pretty much his symbol here. His little, he always has a dragonfly following him around. So I need to finish those two. But this is Gym Rat. This is a guy who was not chosen. So so let's recap a little bit. So the first guy, it's kind of like a guy that was chosen, but not by man, I guess you could say. He was just given these abilities that he kind of doesn't want himself, or his body can't take, you know, in a way, right? And then we have a guy here who was chosen by man to take this martial arts that was made by man to proceed with the line of martial arts, to take it to the next generation and stuff like that. And then, you know, we have the other end of the spectrum, which is a guy who was not chosen, who was actually in a way shunned, or not necessarily shunned, but was looked at as someone who wasn't going to make it because of a disability, which was very visible and was very necessary disability, which is his right eye was damaged, and at a very early age when he was younger. But he always wanted to be a martial artist, and he would go to gyms, you know, different types of boxing gyms and different types of wrestling gyms and kickboxing gyms and whatever. And he was always not given a chance to become, you know, a fighter. And he was always a nuisance, so that's where the name Gym Rat came out. And the other reason is because he actually became a good gym fighter and a guy who was willing to spar anybody. But at a certain point, he was kicked out of different gyms because he was actually beating people who were the money makers, who were the people that were actually fighting professionally. Becomes famous because of it, but ultimately because he wasn't allowed to fight professionally, you know, he becomes good in the underground street fighting community which is where all these other guys tend to meet him as well. So yeah, his story is very complicated. It's kind of longer in a way because it has more, how can I say this? It has more of a story that goes with it. But yeah, he also, if you could tell, he has his hands wrapped here. He also suffers from weak hands. He has very brittle hands. That part of him I actually got from, a very famous boxer called Floyd Mayweather, who you might have heard of, maybe. And he also had brittle hands as well, and he had to wrap them a certain way. I think I saw in one of his interviews that his cut man had to wrap his hands in a certain way in order for his hands not to hurt so much, because he had very, very bad hands. And it wasn't the only thing. He also did some certain, I think it's called Silanin or something, like cane Silanin, which also was injected in his hands in order to help him out with it. So that's the part that's based on him. The other thing about him is he knows the various stances. So he's the most knowledgeable one out of all of these here. And the reason for that is because he was the least gifted. And this is why he made up for it by learning as much as possible about martial arts on his own, because like I said, he wasn't allowed to or people didn't give him, people knew that they weren't going to make money off of him, so they didn't spend too much time with him. So he had to go out of his way to learn stuff on his own. And because of that, he began to learn all different types of stances and all different types of abilities. So he's kind of like, if he was like a video game character, he would be a stance fighter, or he would be able to change different stances and confuse his opponents with that. And when you go to Tombow is more of a guy who's dedicated to one style, because he was chosen, so he was able to dedicate himself to one single style. And he's very judgmental about people who are like Gym Rat, who are not dedicated to one style and kind of, jump around from gym to gym and take from one gym and another gym and this, that, and the other. It's very complicated stuff that goes on with him that I don't want to get into right now, but there's a reason why they call him Gym Rat. Gym Rat is also what you call somebody who spends his time in the gym and is obsessed with working out, which that is also him. I was gonna say something about him, but I forgot. And him here, like I said, he's in a way gifted as well, right? So him here, his main strength is knowledge of the human body and knowledge of different styles. I'm not moving too much. And yeah, that's pretty much those guys there. Their differences are what's gonna make them come together in a way that that's gonna enrich the story and teach us a lesson about not being so judgmental, and so which is something that I think the martial arts community needs at the moment. And these are like stages, because I'm doing this thing like if it was like a video game, because I always thought that video games had the best organization to create a good storyline, but I also think that it's never been done properly before for some reason. But it does have, in my opinion, like Street Fighter and Tekken and stuff like this, it does have a good format, in my opinion, to create a very good storyline. But and this here is the master. That's the guy who taught Tombow. So, and he's like a Tai Chi master, and he's actually based on a guy that I actually met in real life back in middle school. And actually have a video that I talked about him. So if you want to learn more about him, you know, just go to Master Yu, the Tai Chi master. It's actually a very funny story. Very crazy guy. But yeah, go ahead and check that one out. And some of you are probably gonna judge me already, but I'm not saying I believe it or anything like that. Just go look at the video. And this here is old school. This one is based on a lot of elements, a lot of stuff. So this one is based well, not primarily. It's divided, right? But let's go over one of the elements. One of the elements that I was based on, that I used to create this character, is the lowrider logo. So his face is pretty much based on kind of like the lowrider logo. The composition of it has the kind of like the cholo hat with the glasses and the mustache. That's one. The other one is also, you know, that mask, that the popular mask that people used to put on, like a funny mask with the nose and the mustache and the glasses. That's the other thing. Last but not least, it's based on my dad. My dad has a hat like this. He has shades that he uses, or it's glasses that get darker with, if the sun is out, they get darker. And he has mustache like this, not that big, but you know, it's an exaggeration for this. And the name is actually my dad's nickname. So I guess you could say he's heavily based on my dad. And yeah, that's pretty much how I composed this character here. And he's actually this character, if I think about it, the first time I drew something like this was way back in elementary. So you could say this is probably the oldest one, but I only drew him like one time. And his mustache was different. His mustache was actually like a yeah, it was well, I don't want to go ahead and get into it right now, but it was more like a brush type mustache that went straight like this. And yeah, but I only drew him once, and then I was like, that I like the way that looks, but I'm not. And then I came back to it later. It's weird how things happen. And this is, you know, like an old school type stance of boxing. He's knowledgeable in wrestling, catch as catch can wrestling, and boxing. Like old dirty type boxing, old school dirty type boxing. And he's the master of gym rat, but not so much. He's the one that stuck around, basically. And he's also his matchmaker. That's actually his main function, is his matchmaking, because he's able to see, you know, the weaknesses of certain fighters and who he's able to beat. So he's basically the Reynoso to Canelo, to like Gym Rat or whatever. And there's a quotes here. All right, let's get this over with. I guess experience was the key. Respect your elders, kid. Yeah. And then last but not least, I think this is going to be the last character here. And then we're going to go through some random drawings that I did. This is Merlin Jr. And that's her, what they call her, which is a her. That's going to be like the surprise or whatever. That it's supposed to be meant to surprise people that it's a she. But his father was Merlin, obviously, and his father wanted. So traditionally, the line of Merlins is passed down to a male, and since she wasn't a boy, you know, his father kind of like, I can't really pass down the title to you, but I can teach you, you know, the moves or whatever. And she taught her like the magic and stuff like that. And of course, the father eventually dies. I haven't really written down how he's gonna die or whatever. But she has to take Excalibur and find a champion to give the sword to. The reason he has to do that is because something's gonna happen with the dragon and stuff like that. Like I said, this one is kind of, I haven't gone into it a lot, but I know the basic plot of this story with Merlin Jr. And she's constantly, you know, kind of pissed that she was shunned, or because being a girl, and she's not, I guess, she feels like she's unworthy, so she's constantly beating up guys to prove that nobody's worthy of the sword, in a way. And she's a really good fighter, and she has magic and whatever. And, you know, I guess in a way she kind of wants to find a worthy opponent so that she could finally give the sword to that person. But at the same time, I feel like, you know, she's kind of like, nobody's worthy, you know. This one's too big. But yeah, that's pretty much her, kind of like her plot, is that that's what she does. And one of the things she says is no one is worthy. And then I guess at the beginning she'll probably say like something like, let's see if you're the one or something. But this was probably supposed to be over here, which is what she says at the end. No one is worthy, yeah. And that's her stuff here, her sword and her backpack. I think that's it for the characters that I actually made. Let's see what else I got over here. This was that drawing that I made last time, which he actually turned out to be a wrestler. But sometimes that happens. You just start something and then it turns into something else. This was supposed to be Spence, but later I figured out that you could actually draw him better than that. Ugas. It's a girl getting out the shower. How much time do I got? No, I can't finish this right now. So, Crusader armor. Oh wow, this guy here. Okay, so yeah, I don't think I'm gonna have time to get into this guy here, but he's pretty much a vigilante skater, roller skater, and yeah, he has armor, and he skates and beats people up. I want to get into how I came up with this guy, but I think I'm running out of time. So yeah, that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. These are some of my ideas, and I guess I'm not worried about people stealing it, although that would suck. But a lot of these ideas, you know, they've been around. The execution of them is what matters, in my opinion. And yeah, that's pretty much. And I have so many ideas. Some of them aren't even on. I have a lot of sketchbooks. Some of them aren't even on here. Some of them are on another sketchbook that I got over here somewhere. I have a lot of stuff, and yeah, pretty much it. And I hope you guys enjoyed that. And if you like this, please like, comment, and subscribe. And I will catch you guys on the next one.